But when it came to, Target and Bud Light, those stole the news cycle for so long, and they were kind of a warning shot across the bow for so many other companies. What do you think happened there? I mean, we could just say that people saw it and reacted, but there's been a lot of other similar things where people didn't react, and maybe more egregious. So do we think as case studies we know why those cases in particular just became such salient moments? Was it just kind of a lining of the stars?
Confluence of things. Well, yeah. I do think that Target was the most outspoken of many of the companies going way back to same-sex marriage. I stopped going to Target in 2014, 2015 when they started literally sponsoring marriage, like same-sex marriage efforts in the states that were trying to pass amendments. They were very woke at the time, and that continued until recently when CEO Brian Cornell said, oh, well, having this trans merch is great for our business. And I think the second he said that, coming on the heels of Bud Light, I think one of the things that made it so successful is that people trained all of their energy on those two companies. I think that they were at the tip of the spear, and people are like, well, for sure I can stop drinking Bud Light. It's terrible beer anyway. And for sure I can find somebody else to shop at apart from Target. And I think just having those two at the forefront of everybody's minds meant that, wow, all their energy was trained there, and they took huge hits. And people I think are encouraged and motivated because they saw the difference they were making. We were getting monthly reports of how much their stock was cratering and just how badly their business was doing.
They haven't recovered still to this day.
No, they haven't. Although I do appreciate that they did take that merch out for the most part. They're still sponsoring pride parades, which is an issue, but I mean, you can't do everything overnight. This is a long march through the institutions, and it'll be a long march to take them back, but they are showing signs of improvement. But that would be what I see. What do you think, Stefan?
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I think there was also a point where a lot of people got radicalized in the best sense of the word, which is to say, I think you had a lot of groups that were perfectly willing to support this stuff until it got a little too close to home, right? And the Bud Light drinker who's like, fine, you want to do this stuff, wherever else you want to do it, but I'm just going to drink my beer and enjoy it in a patriotic, family-friendly way. And then all of a sudden, boom, you're slammed with Dylan Mulvaney. And even more critically, I think a lot of moms who would probably support a lot of this stuff from a distance, right? We talk about toxic empathy a lot, where there's this idea of like, oh, well, I'm going to be supportive. I don't want to offend anyone, right? But when you start coming for the kids, right? When you start forcing parents to have these conversations just when they want to go pick up something at the store, you are radicalizing people. And again, I mean that in the most positive sense of the word, in terms of actually waking them up in the way that they should be woken up to see the truth about these agendas. Something else that I'll point to, you mentioned a lot of different examples, and certainly they're not all cutting in one direction, and we can talk about that. But when you think back to Robbie Starbuck and what he did at Tractor Supply and John Deere originally, I believe those were the two, maybe Caterpillar, I need to double check, but there were a couple that he started with, and they dragged their heels. And as they dragged their heels, their stock price went down. It was a very clear one-to-one correlation. And the point I always want to make when it comes to talking about Robbie Starbuck is nobody has ever accused him of lying, right?
Right.
That's very true.
Perfect example of simply exposing the truth. All he does is he gets the information from insider whistleblowers and he just shows it to people. And it's so damning on its face that these companies have to acquiesce.
And in a lot of those instances, the CEOs at the very top don't know this is happening, or don't know to the degree that it's happening, and it opens their eyes. I think a lot of the stories that he's told, people have been shocked. I didn't know that we were supporting this. I didn't know that we were part of the Trevor Project or submitting to HRC. So it is good awareness just for them. They're focused on their company, on their products, on stockholder. And so it has been great for him to even reveal that to the people at the top. And I think you point out another great thing, which is that this really came to a head over the transgender issue. You're right. When they went after kids, when we were normalizing Dylan Mulvaney, a man in a dress, and drinking Bud Light, that really struck people in a way that even same-sex marriage, I don't think, got to them. It was very in your face. So I do think that was important as well.